let's throw Phil in.
Phil.
This is my buddy Phil. And one of the things that's so interesting about this young man here is that I was one of the first EMTs in Missouri, you know, emergency medical technicians. I thought I wanted to go to medical school, blah, 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 blah. But when you're a frontline worker, you know, you work in the streets and you get a call and you never know where you're going, and I did this in Southern California too. And it turned out I was better at talking to the people that were high on LSD or that had overdosed or were psychotic, because emergency rooms do not like psychiatric patients, and they don't like drug addicts either, all right? But Phil has been a blessing because he's highly educated. He knows how to integrate medically. He's a very smart guy, But he knows how to integrate, and it was funny too because we were down doing the vigil at the Arch, and this horse and carriage, you know, the buggies down there, they went crazy, and I guess when you work in the EMS for a while, and I worked in an emergency room for years and years and years, it's kind of a high you get, or I did, you know, going, And anyway, so this carriage is out of control, and these people are speaking, and you know, so I rush over there, and I'm doing the ho-ho, and Phil's there doing the ho-ho, and you know, there were some Army medics and some other people came, and the people were like shook up in the back of the thing, you know, and then I look over, and Phil's like directing traffic, yeah, on his flashlight, you know, so like that never goes away. It's true of police officers too, you know, that when they retire, when that job's taken away, they always, that's in them, you know, what their street smarts brings to the table, or what they see, you know, you can't learn that in school, right? It's an innate sense. And you become a paramedic, you become a medical person because you want to help save lives and help people. So I just want to say I'm very happy to have Phil as part of our group, and he's going to be in charge with Savannah too of doing a community outreach, which will be like a clean needle exchange and some other ideas as we get organized with our foundation. But I'll just let Phil tell us the story, and thanks for coming.
Okay. My name is Phil Wahby. I'm a heroin addict. 41 years old. It's kind of, I guess, start with the story. I believe the first thing, or the first time that I felt different from a chemical was alcohol. About 7 years old. It was my brother's 21st birthday. Somehow I wound up at this party with all his friends, and I was the bartender. So, you know, I'm 7 years old, and I'm trying to pour draft beers, and nobody was drinking, so I'm drinking. And long story short, I wound up running into some kind of metal lamp thing and busting my head open. And I just noticed that I felt different, and I was kind of like everybody was like, ha, look at Phil, so I busted my head open. And then from there, it went into cigarettes, and I believe, you know, you hear in these high school talks, or grade school talks even, that marijuana is a gateway drug. I believe that nicotine, in my case, was a gateway drug. It put me in a realm of, I'm not going to say bad people, but kind of the rebellious crowd. You know, it opened the door to the guys that were standing outside Schnucks on Friday nights and finding somebody that was 21 to buy us beer. It graduated up to, you know, alcohol, through cigarettes. I remember stealing money from my mom to buy cigarettes. So that addictive chemicals were released in my brain, which caused me to do some of the behaviors like John said. You know, I needed cigarettes, I needed my, quote, nicotine drug to feel normal. So I'd have to steal to get it because, you know, at 10 years old, not very employable. That graduated to marijuana. Marijuana seemed to be the all-around, you know, my buddies were doing it, so, you know, what the heck, I'll do it too. And then I found that I couldn't stop. I guess at 18 years old, I was smoking pot every day. Decided to, well, at 16, I decided to quit school, or just quit going to school. I was in a school, I don't even know if it's still is, for health careers. It was the St. Louis public school system after I got thrown out of Catholic schools a couple times. In health careers, that was my passion. I wanted to be a St. Louis City paramedic. And I quit high school with, I guess, the blessing of a judge. because I was in truant court, because I wasn't going to school. My father was a lieutenant in the police department. My mother worked in the court systems, so they kind of knew these people. And the judge asked me, he goes, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, well, I want to get a GED. I want to, go to school and become a paramedic and work for the city. And he looked at my mom, he goes, well, it sounds like he knows what he wants to do, so let him do it. And that's what I did. I went to work for my uncle. I was still using dope and drinking beer. When I say dope, weed at that point. And went and put myself through emergency medical technician school, and then went into paramedic school through a program that was with St. Louis University that's not there anymore. Once I got on an ambulance, it opened my eyes to a lot of things. One, a lot of tragedy, crisis, and like John said, it's stuff you can't learn in school. I mean, there's, the years that I worked at EMS, I was dealing with, they were breaking homicide records every year. It's when the Crips and Bloods first started their little deals in St. Louis. I worked out of Union and Natural Bridge at the Area 3 police station on an ambulance at that time was called, we were Medic 8. In a 12-hour shift, I might have 18 calls. Out of those 18 calls, there might have been 12 patient contacts. Out of those 12 patient contacts, 8 of them were probably critical, be it trauma, medical emergencies, from geriatrics to pediatrics. A call that sticks in my head is it was an 8-year-old kid that was walking home from his Cub Scout meeting at the corner of, I believe it was Lexington and Euclid. He was in his Cub Scout uniform walking down the street, and somebody decided to come by in a car and just started open firing on a house that was behind the kid. This kid got hit like 8 times in the chest, all over. He was still alive. We got there, and in emergency medicine you were taught, the golden hour. Well, the golden hour was the whole hour from the time you make the patient intervention to the time they're in surgery. So really our time was like the golden 10 minutes. So, we grab this kid up, throw him in the ambulance, backboard him, throw him in the ambulance, and we do everything en route. We're starting IVs on this kid, we're intubating the kid, we get him to the hospital, get him out of the ambulance, take him into the trauma room at Children's. I walked outside and I'm sitting on the back of an ambulance smoking a cigarette like this. And security guard came up and he's like, are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm fine. He was, you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. And really inside I was not fine. I was not, human beings aren't geared to deal with that kind of trauma. You're supposed to be able to mourn and like wow and all that. Well, the only time that I was given to process that whole scenario was when I'm wiping this kid's blood off of the truck and thinking about, man, how can people do this to people? So I've got all these feelings in my mind, in my head, and I don't know how to deal with them. So the next thing I learned to do is drink, because I can't feel. I cannot do my job appropriately and having those feelings and emotions. So I would drink and use drugs to hide those feelings and emotions. And I was a member of the critical incident stress debriefing team for the St. Louis Fire Department. Nobody used it because we all used dope. That was how we dealt with those feelings and emotions. We'd get off work at 7 o'clock in the morning, we'd go to choir practice, which was at a bar, and the bar was called Area 4. It was owned by some police officers, and the police stations in St. Louis at that time were called Area 1, 2, and 3. And Area 4 was like the 19th hole is to a golf course, And we'd all go in there, drink, like I said, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd have to be back work at 8 o'clock. We'd quit drinking at 4, and I'd have to get back on the truck at 8 o'clock at night. So naturally, I'm hungover or probably still drunk. Being exposed to all this trauma and crisis, we also had, obviously, an overwhelming supply of narcotics. It was just before the hospice program started, which is kind of a keep people comfortable while they're dying of cancer kind of thing, heavy narcotics. And they're regulated. But before the hospice program, they would just give you a bottle of morphine and say, here, take these when you don't feel good. Well, when you're dead, we figured you didn't need your medicine anymore. So I lived with what was called called the Home for Wayward Paramedics with 3 other medics. None of them are alive now. They've all died from heroin overdoses. So we had like a system to get these pills. That was my first experience with opiates, was on that ambulance and taking dead people's medicine, because like I said, they didn't need it anymore, and it was all about me. Drug addicts and alcoholics by nature are selfish, self-centered. We're driven by 1,000 forms of fear. In saying that, it's all about me. You know, I didn't care about you. I didn't care about anybody else. It was me first, and then we'll work on everything else about you later. I proceeded in from doing pills to cocaine. My one partner, and when I say this stuff about the fire department, none of these people are still employed with the fire department, so you can safely call 911 today. Okay. My partner was a pretty large cocaine dealer in St. Louis. We would go fake calls in the ambulance to go to his dealer's house, and we'd walk in, and the first clue that you knew it was kind of a fake call was that city ambulances never take the stretcher out of the ambulance at first. Never. Okay, so we're loading up the stretcher, putting all the equipment in, we're walking into this house. I'm sitting in the living room, he's somewhere else in the house, then we come back out, and he's got the bag, and he puts it on the stretcher, and we carry the stretcher out, and we act like it was, you know, a refusal. We didn't transport a patient. He's in the back of the ambulance, I'm in the front of the ambulance, I'm driving, he's like, Phil, just take me home and don't get pulled over. I said, we're in a city ambulance, man. The city police aren't going to stop us, you know, unless they know. And he's like, yeah, well, don't get stopped. I said, okay. So I'm taking him over to roughly Vanderbilt and St. Louis Avenue. I'm like, hey, man, how much coke is in the back of this truck, just for, you know, my knowledge? He's like 17 ounces. So we're moving 17 ounces of dope in an ambulance through the city streets when we're supposed to be saving people's lives. Like I said, these people aren't employed any longer with the department. He didn't use it, but I would. You know, and like I said, it was all about me. You know, I did my job. I performed flawless in life or death situations. I treat my sobriety like a life or death situation. And when I work with other drug addicts and alcoholics, I treat it like a life or death situation. I don't sugarcoat stuff. Because for me to use is to die, period. My first Narcotics Anonymous meeting was at Deaconess Hospital when I was 20 years old. I'll be 42 in January. I played around with this stuff for, well, 20 years. The first 10 years I wasn't serious about it. I was doing things my way. You know, I would take suggestions, doing them my way. Didn't put together very much time through all that. At about 30 years old, I started using IV heroin. In the last 10 years, right now I'm working on almost 2 years clean. In the last 10 years, I've had about 8 years clean. 3 years here, 3 years there, 2 years there, with little relapses in the middle. And you know, I attribute those relapses to not doing the things that I needed to do to keep myself on an even keel, which, if you're familiar with 12-step programs, that's what they are, 12 steps. I attribute my sobriety to Alcoholics Anonymous and some actions that I take. You know, it's AA, HA, if it ends in an A, it's God for Dummies, that's what it is. And I say that because when I walked into the program, I was spiritually bankrupt. You know, I was just numb to everything. I had to get this concept of a God because I walked around on earth that I was God on earth. You know, it was my deal. Whatever I wanted to happen, I would wave my magic little control finger and I would make it happen. And then that caused unmanageability in my life, and I can't make you do anything. So like I said, it causes unmanageability in my life. So how do I deal with that? Shoot dope. You're not doing the things I want you to do. So it's I mean, I wish I could say how it works, because I look at everybody that doesn't have a drug and alcohol problem, I'm like, I don't get it. I just don't get how y'all operate. I really don't. And I say that because, you know, I also heard that, you know, normies or normal people are just people that haven't received diagnoses yet. And I kind of go with that, you know. You know, for me to go in, I've been in tons of treatment centers. I've been in probation and parole. I've been in drug court. I was the last person in the courtroom, and that's not a good feeling in drug court. Yeah, I've had the fugitive apprehension street team looking for me. I've had my doors kicked in. I've had other people's doors kicked in. I've sold them. You know, I've just all this stuff to basically to keep myself high. And like I said, it was all about me. It's all about self. I heard a guy in a meeting one time say that, you know, when you wake up in the morning with untreated alcoholism, your alarm clock's going me. Then you get in the car and you turn the radio on and it's tuned into WIFM, and that's what's in it for me. And I'm serious. That's what I think. What's in it for me? Kids needs diapers. I need to get high. We'll get them diapers later. I have to go get high. You know, when I said AA and the 12 steps, that's the way out of this. For me, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with the 12 steps. Step 1 says, you know, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol or drugs and our lives have become unmanageable. That's a duh for me. If I introduce drugs into my system, this thing happens in my brain, I cannot stop. Once I start, it doesn't matter what it is. You know, if it was K2, I've never tried it, but I know I'd like it. I know I would like it because it starts this chemical reaction in my brain, which causes this obsession to get more dope and this compulsion to do whatever I need to do to get it. The way I work with a sponsor, and a sponsor is just somebody that has been through the 12 steps, that's willing to take you through the 12 steps. My sponsor, all he wants from me is the best life possible, period. And I trust him. I know these guys know my sponsor, and to hear his story, it's like, wow. And then talk to him now, totally different person. I'm at work now, so you gotta excuse me for a second.
Yes.
Anyway, step 2 is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's the part where there's spiritual principles behind each step. The first step, spiritual principle, is honesty. The second step is hope, faith. Coming to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity is that rallying point where, okay, I have to realize that I can't do this on my own and I need something else. It doesn't have to be God. It's, you know, G-O-D, group of drunks, good orderly direction, whatever. They tell you not to choose doorknobs or cats and dogs because cats and dogs die and doorknobs don't have self-will. You know, they're not going to help you when you need that help. Step 3 is became willing to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. The best analogy I can give you for that is, you ever seen the movie Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell? When they're at the kitchen table and they're like, well, I like my baby Jesus, and Grandpa's like, he's a man, he's got a beard, and then the other guy likes him in a tuxedo t-shirt. Whatever you want to dress him up to be is whatever he can be. The point is it's something greater than you that I can say, I can't do this, you can, and I'm going to let you do it. The 4th step is made a fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves. Anybody with a business mind knows that if you don't take an inventory in a business, you go bankrupt, you go broke. A 4th step for a drug addict or alcoholic is causes and conditions. You look at the fears, my role in doing things to other people, why John's mad at me. You know, I need to look at that and see what my role in that was. And then in the 5th step, I need to share that with God, myself, and someone else, usually my sponsor. And then Robert, who's my sponsor, came up with, I had this list about this long, and every one of them was self. The alarm clock, me. So step 6 is became entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. The spiritual principle behind, I know I'm jumping around, to 5 is integrity. That's big with me, and it's what my sponsors pushes with me is hold your integrity. Step 6 tells me to become willing to have God remove these things. That's the principle, is willingness. That's where I believe the meat of this program is. That's where we change our core beliefs. If I'm a liar, a cheat, and a thief, and that's what I am, well, now I do the opposites of that. I become honest. I don't cheat. I don't steal. So there I'm working for the positive principles of this program. I believe that spiritual principles are the opposites of defects of character. Step 7 just says entirely had our shortcomings removed, and I know I'm like paraphrasing these. Shortcomings, character defects, same thing, 2 different words, because when Bill W. wrote the book, he did not want to use the words character defect back to back. Step 8 is made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. That's where I get to put lists together and of all the people that I had wronged and become willing to make amends to them all. Funny story about an amends, I volunteered with the Salvation Army while I was a paramedic, and I was stealing these big generators from the Salvation Army. And the guy that I was stealing them from was a retired St. Louis City Fire captain, a rescue squad captain. He's dead now. His line was, when the fire department's in trouble, they call the rescue squad. When the rescue squad's in trouble, they call God. This guy was a Vietnam veteran, decorated Green Beret. I mean, pretty bad dude. Here I am stealing these generators from him. Well, he caught me. And him and I got in a little fist fight. And I went my separate ways, he went his separate ways. I didn't get killed, obviously. Then one day, I rented an apartment across the street from this garage that he lived in for the Salvation Army. And I've got this big tow truck outside, and I'm trying to hide, getting into my car so he wouldn't, or the truck, so he wouldn't see me. And one day I come out and there's a note that says, hey, this is Vince from across the street. I need a car towed. Would you be willing to do it for me? He had no clue who I was. And I'm like, oh, I can't do this, So I called my sponsor and I'm like, hey, this was a different sponsor town. I'm like, hey man, gotta make an amends. I don't know if I need to do this since the last time we got into a fist fight and it wasn't good. He's like, well, go dial 911 on your phone, keep it on the phone, so if you need it, you can just hit send, pray, and go make that amends. And I'm like, all right, so I'm like, God help, walked across the street, knocked on the door, Vince opened the door, and he just immediately puffed up, and I was like, whoa, that ain't what this is about, Vince. I wronged you, this is why I wronged you, I'm here to make an amends for that, I'll tow this car for you, so on and so forth. And he's like, you don't ever think I did anything wrong in my life? Total turnaround, and we towed the car, and Vince and I mended that relationship. Could I replace those generators for him? It would have took a while, but all he wanted was me to do the next right thing, make that living amends, stay clean, and that's what I'm doing now. Did I do it after that? No, I relapsed. I couldn't tell you when, but that's what step 9 is about, is making those direct amends, except when to do so would injure them or others. It doesn't say injure me, it says others. So, I realized that then it wasn't a big deal. That fear of doing that stuff was gone. Okay, now the reason I'm getting high is because I'm afraid of what other people are going to think or what he's going to do to me, or I got to duck outside my house to get. It's gone. I made that amends. Step 10 is to continue to take a personal inventory when we were wrong, promptly admit it. Very hard for me to do. I am not wrong, ever. Ever. And even when I am wrong, I'm still right. That's alcohol and drug addiction. We'd sit here and argue all day that the sky's purple, okay? It's plainly blue, but it's purple, okay? That step gives me the opportunity to come to you and say, hey, you know what, I wronged you. It might not happen immediately. It might take 8, 12 hours, maybe a couple days, for me to cool down and realize that I am wrong. And it's okay for me to be wrong today. It's also part of that integrity thing of coming and saying that, I was wrong or I wronged you. And when you look at these other steps, you think it's a design for living. It's supposed to make you a better person. Well, it does, but I'm still human and I still do wrong things. I just do them less because I have more of an awareness of what I'm doing and that I don't want to hurt people and I don't want to hurt myself. Step 11 is continue to seek through prayer and meditation a conscious contact with my higher power and perfect knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. that's basically seeking knowledge, you know, making a conscious contact with God, saying, hey God, help me today. I can't do this on my own and I need your help. Guide me and direct me. And the 12th step is what I'm doing right here. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to drug addicts and alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Those principles, like I said, are honesty, hope, belief, courage, integrity, willingness, humble, brotherly love, justice, knowledge, and love and tolerance. And that's what I try and live by on a regular basis. Does it happen every day? No. Is it progress from yesterday? Yes. As long as I'm making forward progress in this, I'm doing good. If I'm not working on recovery, I'm working on relapse. Now, how I relapse is I quit praying, I quit going to meetings, I quit talking to my sponsor, I quit working with other alcoholics, I quit doing stuff like this. Because like I said, that me alarm clock, I get to come in here and talk to you guys for a half hour for my favorite subject. Okay? But you know what? Knowing that I had to do this got me clean. You know, how last night it was kind of up in the air whether I was going to be able to come or not. And then I texted John this morning and said, yeah, I can come. But you know, last night I had an idea that I wanted to come. So I'm not going to get high, you know, because I have that integrity that I have to hold, that I can't call John and say, well, you know what, I just went out and shot a gram of heroin, I can't be there, you know. And he wouldn't have got a phone call anyway. He wouldn't have. I would have just dropped off the radar 6-8 months if I wasn't dead, because this stuff is killing people daily, and unfortunately it's killing kids. And you know, I got a 19-year-old son. I like to say I got a 19-year-old dad, because this kid comes up with some stuff, man. I don't know where he comes up with it. But he's like, Dad, you can't go to bed in a fog. And I'm like, fog? He said, yeah, fog. I said, what's that? He's like, fear, unmet obligations, and guilt. And I'm like, where are you getting this at? You know, maybe I need to go talk to your therapist. But see, I put my kid through hell. And, you know, I stole from my kid. You know, for him to wake up on Christmas and not have presents from his dad because I'm holed up in a hotel somewhere shooting dope. And then when I find out he gets a PS3 for Christmas, I go steal it. You know, that's the person I become when I introduce drugs of any kind into my body. Okay? I'm the nicest person under the sun when I'm not doing drugs, but once I introduce just one into my body, my head goes criminal. It just does. It's that chemical change in my skull that says, you gotta get more, you gotta get more. And sometimes just even the thrill of getting it is, you know, I'm a grade A adrenaline junkie. I like to start IVs on people doing 70 miles an hour down the highway. I can't do that anymore because I created some chaos there, which they allowed me to resign under a neutral rating. Now I got another adrenaline job. I'm a repossession agent. I go in and take people's cars. I enjoy that. It's a rush. It really is. It's a character defect, a thief. Now I can legally take stuff. And I got a guy's Land Rover on his truck right there. They don't give those up. You know, that's a nice car. So it's that rush, that fear of danger, or that threat of danger, that, oh, this is cool, you know, and that's how I guess, satisfy my cravings for drugs and alcohol today. And I don't even want to say it's craving, because I don't crave drugs anymore. I don't have that thought in my head that says, hey, go get high. It's gone. It's just, I don't know why it's gone. I just know it is. And the things that keep it gone are, like I said, prayer meetings, other drug addicts, alcoholics, and service work. You know, people spend 15 grand to go to Hazelden, which is probably on the low end, for drug treatment. To walk in there and realize that meetings cost you $1, if that, you know. You can get sober in a bush, you know, I've lived under bridges, I've homeless shelters, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's like her story is no different than mine, other than it was presented by a female. We did the same stuff. She just did it later on in life, you know. But drugs and alcohol made us do that. To kind of answer some of the questions about parents and how you know your kid's getting high, if they're using heroin, they're gonna get sick. Okay. It's one of those, like with the needle, once always. Once I learned how to shoot dope, that's all I did. If I could learn how to inject marijuana, I would have. Okay, zots. It doesn't matter, you know. Telltale sign, tracks. I don't have them anymore, but you'll see dark marks running up their arms, in their hands. You know how they say people shoot up between their fingers. I was shooting up in a vein in my thumb right here. So I mean, you have to really pay attention. Your kid's behavior is going to change. They're going to turn from, "Hi Mom, how was your day?" to upstairs, or start running around with the wrong crowd, pawn tickets, stuff missing in the house. I live in an Oxford house, which is a transitional housing thing for drug addicts and alcoholics. It's sober living. It's run by us. We don't have like counselors in the house, nothing like that. It's a democratically run house. We count our spoons in there because that's a way that we can say, where's all the spoons going? You know, we got down to 3 spoons one time, and we drug tested the house. You know, and we found some people that were dirty. Stealing. I mean anything. Craigslist. I went through an entire house. Okay, I sold the kitchen cabinets, the sink, the cabinets under the sink, the heater, the air conditioning unit, the everything, the wire in the house, all the pipes in the house, furniture, microwave, dishwasher, you name it. I mean, obviously a kid can't walk into a house and take the dishwasher without being noticed, but things that are priceless to you. Cameras, Joe, man, I took things from my mom that I can never replace. Never. For $3. Take a silver chain. I'll give you $3 for it. Sold. You know? Why? Because it was all about me. You know, I got a key to my mom's house today. Got a good job. My family wants me around now. I've given an opportunity with John through this organization to carry this message to people that are still sick and suffering, to help parents, to relate to people. That's what I believe my purpose in life is to help people heal. You know, did I want to be a trauma surgeon at one point? Yes. Did I want to be a nurse at one point? Yes. But you know what? I'm perfectly fine with being Phil the heroin addict that's going to repossess your car if you don't pay for it. I'd be Phil the
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.